Sir Topham Hatt arrived at the works. Richard had been swiftly repaired, and his fresh paint glistened in the sun. "How are you, Richard?" he smiled. "I feel fantastic. Splendiferous. Very well, sir, thank you." "That's good," laughed Sir Topham Hatt. "We'll start you on local runs. Then you can work your way up to the Express. I'm sure you and Gordon will work splendidly together." Richard wasn't sure who Gordon was, but he was certainly looking forward to being useful again. Meanwhile, the other engines were finding Gordon insufferable. He boasted endlessly during the busy summer season, never missing a chance to remind them how vital he was to the railway. Most engines simply ignored him, but Donald and Douglas had a plan.
"Do you hear about that new engine, Dougie?" Donald asked. "Och, the wee lad Henry found," replied Douglas. "Aye, he's supposed to be taking the express, I hear." Gordon said nothing, but the twins knew he was listening intently. "And not a moment too soon," said Donald. "Our passengers need a reliable lad. Maybe they'll be on time now." "The express is always on time," Gordon interjected. "I ensure it." "That's no what I heard," smiled Donald slyly. "Wee Duncan said you were a minute late the other day." "Ah, I made up the time," barked Gordon. "Maybe," snickered Douglas, "but before you know, 1 minute turns to 2, and 2 to 3, and 3 to, well, you know. Perhaps Sir Topham Hatt will nip that problem in the bud. With Richard." The twins chuckled as they left the station. Gordon was very cross, and secretly a little nervous. I'll show them, he fussed. "I'll not have my express stolen by some vagrant engine."
That night, Richard arrived in the sheds. Henry was quick to make introductions, and the other engines wanted to know all about him, except Gordon and James. "Ridiculous," muttered Gordon. "How can that engine possibly take my express?" "He wouldn't stand a chance," replied James. Truthfully, he was a bit more worried about his own chance pulling the express. "The very notion," grumbled Gordon. It's disgraceful." "Disgusting," added James. "Despicable." Gordon and James jumped, unaware that Henry had been listening. "You two are despicable," Henry went on. "You gave Oliver a hero's welcome, but Richard gets the cold buffer." "Oliver," replied Gordon, "fought his way here. Richard was in the right place at a convenient time." "Say what you will, though it's far from the truth," said Henry plainly. "I'm not wasting any more time listening to your moaning." Gordon and James muttered to themselves. Was it something I said?" asked Richard sadly. "Considering you haven't said anything." "Not at all," chuckled Henry. "Leave them be. They'll come around eventually. They're afraid you'll give them a run for their money." Richard wasn't sure what use steam engines had for money, or why they'd be running after it, but he was worried about Gordon and James. Things were no better next morning. Gordon kept to himself, a grimace on his face. He hurried along with his express, hardly sparing a whistle to passing engines. He came to a stop at Edward Station. As he waited, Richard came carrying a works train. He whistled a friendly greeting and rushed past. "Did you hear how he whistled at me, Edward?" Gordon cried. "Most engines call that saying hello, Gordon," Edward chuckled. "I'll tell you what it's called," huffed Gordon. "It's a taunt. Oh, he thinks he can take my express, does he? Well, I'll give him something to whistle about." "Some engines," sighed Edward as Gordon snorted away. On time, on time, grumbled Gordon as he raced along. I'll do better than that. I'll be early. Slow down, moaned the coaches. They thought they were going to fly off the rails. Gordon hadn't realized all his running around was starting to take a toll on him. Every now and then a wisp of sparks flew from his funnel. He arrived safely at the big station, and he was early. His driver, concerned, looked him all over. "I'm not sure what," he sighed to the fireman, "but something has him all fired up. You all right, Gordon?" "Never better," he replied hastily. This wasn't true. Gordon did feel a bit strange, but he wasn't about to let on to it. Soon it was time to leave. The guard's whistle blew, and Gordon started off again. Sparks came from his funnel once more, as he picked up speed and puffed towards the countryside.
Hurry! Come on! With a thunderous noise, Gordon began wheezing steam and slowing down. Ouch! What's happened? Something's broken! The driver coughed through the billowing steam. Goodness knows what, though. Gordon? Gordon looked down. As the smoke parted, he saw Trevor, the traction engine. "Trevor, what are you doing here?" quizzed Gordon. "Well," stuttered Trevor, I was going to ask, what are you doing here?" Gordon looked around and gasped. He'd broken down on the level crossing. "Oh, my," he whispered. It didn't take long for traffic to build up. Gordon winced as the sound of irritated horns filled the air. "My aching smoke box," he groaned. Soon Gordon heard something else. In the distance were sirens. The fire brigade came as close as they could before being blocked by the traffic. Soon the fire chief ran up to them. "What are you doing?" he cried. "We can't get to the fire if you're blocking the road." "What fire?" quizzed Gordon. "At a signal box down the line. This is the fastest way there, but we can't get through now." But, stammered Gordon, "I can't move." Suddenly a whistle sounded out. It was Richard and the works train. He drew to a halt close by. "Wow!" he gasped. "Do you see all that smoke, Gordon?" "Hard to when I'm facing away," muttered Gordon. "But this is no time for gawking. We have an emergency." Richard listened and thought for a moment. "Well, why don't we load those hoses into my train? I'll take the fireman down the line myself. I've got a full, nearly full enough, pretty full tender." "Pah!" sniffed Gordon. "Preposterous. That would never work." "Oh, yes, it would," replied the fire chief. "Let's hurry. No time to lose." The men quickly loaded the hoses and got on board. Richard rushed down the line to the signal box. The firemen wasted no time, firing their hoses from right inside Richard's tender. Richard was amazed. Soon the fire was out. The signalman had escaped unharmed, but the signal box was destroyed. "You're our hero, Richard," cried the fireman. "What would we have done without you?" "Been stuck in traffic," Richard joked. "With all that honking, you'd have had as big a headache as... Goodness, Gordon! Oh, I'd forgotten about him." Richard raced back to the level crossing. He buffered up to Gordon and took him on to the next station. Gordon said nothing, clanking sadly behind.
When they arrived, Sir Topham Hatt was there.
"I can see that Richard lit a fire in your boiler, Gordon," he said sternly, "but I'd prefer if you didn't use that spark to cause mishaps like this. The signalman confirmed sparks from your funnel caused the blaze. Now we have a signal box to rebuild, and an express engine out of commission."
Gordon blushed. I'm truly sorry, sir."
I should think so," replied Sir Topham Hatt. "It's off to the works with you. Perhaps it will give you time to think about your behavior. As for you, Richard," he beamed, "I'm very proud of you. Your quick thinking helped put the fire out before it could spread. I'd like you to handle the express until Gordon gets back."
"Oh, sir," beamed Richard, "it'd be my honour."
And so, Richard took charge of the express. He kept a time, too, and was a hit with both coaches and passengers alike. He did it so well that James was jealous. But that's another story.